Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I hope everybody's having a happy new year on this first show of 2025. Just got done watching that Notre Dame Georgia game. I tell you, it's very frustrating if you're a Georgia person. Notre Dame, hey, look, you had an opportunistic, well-coached defense, and you didn't give it away on the offensive side here. Talk about that. Plus, Washington, how far can the Commanders go? Get into that. Sam Darnold, I don't think he's leaving Minnesota. I mean, man, these last couple of weeks for this guy, really big throws at the right time there. Up there, go over the NFL Power 5 and more. Stand by. We'll take our first and only break. I'll be back here momentarily, and we'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, @gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
All righty then. So this is going to be the second year in a row that the SEC will not have a national champion in the college football. I really like the way Ohio State, maybe it's 2 years for the Big Ten, perhaps. Maybe it's 2 years in a row for the Big Ten today, as Georgia beat Notre Dame, Notre Dame beat Georgia. I kind of had a feeling early in the first half. Well, that turnover by the running back there, was at ETN, really cost Georgia. And then you got to go back to the second quarter, towards the end of the second quarter, getting down last few seconds, late turnover there, turns into a touchdown there by Notre Dame. Great defense, or do you want to say bad offense? Either way, Al Golden defense had that Notre Dame defense rolling as usual. I thought Georgia would beat them, even with this backup quarterback, this gunner. That wasn't the case here. Notre Dame simply did not make the mistakes Georgia did, and they're moving on. And you got to give your hats off to Marcus Freeman, who done something Brian Kelly could not do. Brian Kelly could not beat Georgia, play Georgia tight a few times, only to come up short. They end up making the mistakes. Georgia didn't. And, of course, now it's the other way around. Freeman is kind of doing, ironically, he's kind of taken over the way that Kirby Smart took over for the previous coach there at Georgia there, where he can actually get them over the top here. Now, I don't think they're going to win the national championship. I think this is a big win for Notre Dame. I think they've got a good bracket. But between Texas and Ohio State, particularly Ohio State, I still think I would lean that way towards the national championship. I mean, my preseason prediction was Ohio State over Georgia. And, of course, that did not work out the way it was supposed to be. But, again, that's why you play the games. These games look predictable. They look chalkish the first few rounds, the first 3 or 4 games. Now we're starting to see the Arizona-Texas tight game there. Texas almost coughed that one up like a cat coughing up a hairball. Now you've got Georgia, which I thought, they actually had a time of possession edge there on Notre Dame. When I looked at that, I just think Georgia, it was more about Georgia coughing that game up rather than Notre Dame winning it. That being said, Notre Dame, again, made the plays that Georgia did not. Had the veteran quarterback there in Riley Leonard versus the sophomore. And that's the way the cookie crumbles in other college football. Texas, that we've seen this before out of Texas, just about, I don't know every big game, but they have a tendency to sleepwalk sometimes in these games and lose track of focus. Sleeping in the fourth quarter, so up 17 at one time against Arizona State. But hey, look, they want to hang on, winning overtime. Ohio State playing up the preseason hype. Listen, I mean, who would have thought, Coach, 34-0 in the second quarter yesterday? Ohio State, it is to see them play like that against Michigan. I know Michigan beat Alabama again, but I tell you what, I did not see that coming. I don't think anybody saw 34-0 second quarter. Drummond having them down where it's really unwatchable. Jeremiah Smith here from Ohio State. Read this from NFL Rookie Watch. Monster performance against Oregon. 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Smith so far postseason 13 catches, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns. The Buckeyes, this year's version of Randy Moss is what they say. I would say more like a Terrell Owens with some speed, minus the attitude. But we'll see. I mean, Ohio State looks like total world beaters. Kevin says, I think it's going to be Notre Dame and Ohio State, with Ohio State winning. I would agree, possibly there. Beck would have thrown a couple interceptions. I don't think it would have mattered. Georgia's just not quite as buttoned up as they have been in the past. They've lost their offensive coordinator. They don't quite have that level of dominance player-wise that they've had over the last 4 years. I still say they're stockpiled with 5-star players. This kid just made too many mistakes. And, again, Marcus Freeman has taken advantage of that. Kudos to them. I'm trying to see, who was that other coach here? I'm trying to figure out what was the name of that other coach here. That coached there before Kirby Smart. Mark Richt, yeah. So essentially, when you move off of a coach onto another coach, in a sense that the way Notre Dame did, where Brian Kelly just simply took another job at LSU, a lot of times the other coach is not as good. This time, Freeman has actually elevated this program, kind of like Kirby Smart has elevated Georgia, where Georgia had great players under Mark Richt. They just couldn't get over the hump. They've taken another step. We don't know how far they're going to take a step, but Notre Dame has taken that other step there from Freeman, from Brian Kelly to Marcus Freeman here. Marcus Freeman is putting coaches that are better than him, older than him in certain aspects of the game. Is essential. For example, getting a much older coach to run the defense, an Al Golden there, and you can see they have. I mean, they got pressure on the quarterback of Georgia where Tennessee could not. I mean, their pass rush really had Georgia shook there. And hey, that's a lot of it is putting yourself with the right people and not being insecure about bringing in coaches that are better than you in certain areas without having to worry about your job status. For example, bringing the innovation of a Lane Kiffin to Alabama, where Nick Saban felt like they needed a spike in the quarterback play, and of course, bringing Lane Kiffin in there, we saw that, for example. So, to be as young as Freeman is, that's a good thing. Kind of reminds me of a Sean McVay with the Rams, bringing in a Wade Phillips, very young coach, bringing in a 60-something-year-old, 70-something-year-old defensive guru like a Wade Phillips when he first got that job. Freeman, very impressive. Very impressive. All righty then. And as for, again, going back to Ohio State, Michigan beating Alabama. That makes it look a little bit more. And listen, Jalen Monroe played for Alabama. Makes that loss not look so bad. Michigan lost a lot of players, most of them in the NFL draft. It seems like when Michigan got this quarterback commit just a few weeks ago, their fortunes started changing. They go on and beat Ohio State, and then they beat Michigan in the bowl game. And now Ohio State, $20 million is paying off there. They play like the team that played after they lost to Michigan a few years ago against Georgia, where they simply came up short with C.J. Stroud. This team is dominant. They look like the best team out there. Other of these games have not looking good, of course. And I mentioned the BYU, Boise State, or any other Mountain West team. The committee should never give these teams a bye week. I think that'll be fixed. This is part of the learning curve when it comes to this sort of thing. Ashton Jeffrey, 104 yards off 30 carries. He looked pedestrian against Penn State's front seven there, But other than that, it wasn't that bad. These games haven't been that good, but they're going to get better. Now we've got, Texas playing Ohio State. Now we've got, I forgot, is it Texas, Ohio State, and who does Notre Dame have to play? Now it's got me confused at who they play next here in this thing. Either way, it just doesn't look. I remember people talking about Notre Dame having their Notre Dame is simply a Penn State. I mean, looks like they probably will beat Penn State. Penn State's the 6th. They will be playing. We don't know, the Capital One Sugar Bowl on the 9th, which today is today's the 2nd, be 1 week from today, and then the 10th will be 1 week from tomorrow. Go figure. They should put them both on Saturday. But this thing has been jacked up from the get-go. I like the fact that it was put off today. Thoughts and prayers with the people that had to. I always say that. I don't care what anybody says. That had to deal with this terrorist attack, that foolish act there down in New Orleans. But I do like the fact that the game got pushed up to today at a decent hour here. But yeah, so this Penn State, Notre Dame will be playing 1 week from today at 6:30 Central. And then, of course, you got Texas, Ohio State playing next Friday. That's just, go figure, man. Go figure. These guys just can't get right. And then the national championship will be played on the 20th of January. Pushing that championship game back a little farther there, Kevin. Interesting stuff. Big learning curve for the committee. Big learning curve, you know. But either way, I still like the 12-team playoff. I'm not satisfied the way it's played out. I thought these games could have been better. But it is what it is. It's better than what we've had years ago when we didn't have any kind of playoff, when the media just voted on who played for the national championship. Then we had the BCS. Then we had the 4-team playoff. Now we've got the 12-team playoff. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. All right. Now to the professional game. Of the 3 games that we talked about here last Friday. By the way, I want to thank everybody for supporting the program. I kind of got ahead of myself today. I was doing Uber on New Year's Eve there, Coach, and got a lot of new subscribers that I picked up, and I wanted to thank everybody that when I'm out there driving, trying to get money to build this program up, and I have to take days off, and you can see I'm a little rusty right now because I have to bust my rear end just to keep this show going and keep my lights on and everything around my day job, and also keep this marketing and advertising going. But met some really cool people here and around Nashville. A lot of tourists here. Want to thank everybody, and particularly some young ladies out of Franklin. One said she wanted to come on the program. I do want to bring more young people on the program. If you're watching, I did not catch your name, ma'am, but I saw that you subscribed to the Spotify. If you want to come on, just email me sports, the word SKOPE @gmail.com. I would love to bring you on. I bet you and your friends took a picture in Franklin the other night. I want to thank a lot of the guys here also that subscribe to the channel. Everybody that I met on New Year's Eve, worked all night, 3 p.m., got off the day job at 7, started at 3, and drove all night long. Like the Lionel Richie song said, all night long to 3 o'clock in the morning. But anyways, that's a little PSA out of order there. Kevin Carroll says, Big 12's got to keep moving forward. The games can get better. Let the NIL go for a while. The games will get better. Yeah, I think so. I think so. They're still working out the kinks there. They're still working out the kinks there. To the NFL game, there was some good games in the NFL, and the 3 that we talked about all were really good. 2-point game between Minnesota, Green Bay, overtime game with Atlanta and Washington. And the other one I want to say that we talked about was a tight game as well. I want to say overtime game with Denver and Cincinnati. And, of course, Cincinnati goes on and wins the game here. I tell you, folks, I know how to pick them. I can tell you who's going to be a good and who's going to be not good. But going back to Green Bay, Minnesota, Packers seem to have Minnesota's run game in check. Only 47 yards for Aaron Jones here. Sam Darnold. Man, this is 2 weeks in a row, folks. Sam Darnold had to make big throws time and time again as Minnesota beat the Red Hot Packers. Darnold was 33 for 43, 377, 3 touch, 1 pick, 116 quarterback rating. He may have drawn executive interest before this game against Green Bay. I talked about that last-minute drive he had on the road at Seattle. Very impressed. This is very Rich Gannon-like. for Sam Darnold. Some are saying he should be in the MVP conversation with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And if you look at some of the numbers he's put up, you look at their record at 14-2, and they're right there with Detroit there. Of course, Detroit's got the tiebreaker. They got a big showdown against Detroit Sunday night at Detroit. Winner gets the division. Winner gets the bye week. I mean, this is a big playoff like atmosphere up in Detroit land. But going back to Sam Darnold, he may have drawn, like I said, drawn executive interest before that game. After that game on Sunday, he's definitely drawn interest from the ownership in that primetime game against Green Bay here, where it was on him, and he just flat out made the throws. Dinah Rossini says Sam Darnold future interests, I seriously doubt they have interest in him staying there, is what she's saying. And I doubt at this point at 14-2 with that record here against with the strip down defense from Minnesota, this team would probably work out some type of 4-year, $200 million deal. A franchise tag minimum would be for Darnold. There's no way he's going to be a free agent after playing like that. After I thought about that and wrote that up in my notes, I think I probably would franchise him if I'm the ownership. The reason why I say that, for one thing, you still got McCarthy there as an insurance policy. He's coming back from this meniscus tear in his knee. Supposed to be back 100%, everything I hear and read about that. That being said, don't you want to see if he can do it one more year in Minnesota? And I think he will be able to do it, him being Sam Darnold, one more year in Minnesota. This is a guy who bounced around from Carolina, the Jets. I think he was a backup for the 49ers for a little while. He's grateful for any kind of opportunity, and to play with a guy like Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson there, and of course Jordan Addison. Now they've got Hawkinson back there, good blocking up front, really good left tackle there, elite coaching, elite scheme, really good coordinator on the other side. Maybe you want to give him one more year. Now I wouldn't, if they gave him a deal similar to what Baker Mayfield's got down in Tampa, I would be okay with that. But quite frankly, a franchise tag is about $41 million and some change. I'm sure he would be grateful for that, just to stay there and work with O'Connell one more year. And then if he does it again, you get to the playoffs, win some games. Now, if he falls off a truck, then, no autopsy, no foul for the organization. You're not going to lose out. You still got McCarthy there. But if he takes off, then you just shop McCarthy there. It's a good problem to have. And, somebody like Colin Cowherd, he mentions maybe move him to a Minnesota, because they're not going to do anything. And I've said this for about the past 2 years, that Geno Smith, everybody's like, well, hey, you did a lateral move. Okay? You did a lateral move. You got Mike McDonald for Pete Carroll. Guess what? You came close, but no cigar in the playoffs. The Rams have won that division. It's the same move. I mean, you got some talented players there. They're a quarterback away. And now, of course, if you get a big, 5 or 6 draft picks for an unproven rookie that had a pretty good camp, maybe you talk. It just depends on what you feel like you got there and who calls simply Minnesota. I don't know. I doubt that's going to happen. It might happen. Anything can happen. This is not supposed to be a big quarterback draft here coming up. But either way, I'll have to say, I don't think it's a fluke. This is not Aaron Jones again, 47 yards rushing. It's not like he was a game manager. This was all on Darnold making big throws at big times. And he would have had another touchdown if it wasn't for Addison dropping that one in the first quarter. It was a dead bang touchdown. But that being said, again, it's a good problem to have. Let him do it one more year. The flip side, Jordan Love and Green Bay, way too much running earlier. Sometimes you simply kind of like Ohio State in the college game. You have to pass to set up the run. You got to pass to set up the run. And Green Bay, I think that they got way too run happy. They had to run happy. They had way too much respect. Way too much respect for Brian Flores' defense there. Played a little scared. I'm surprised with LaFleur being the offensive-minded head coach that he is, coming off the games where they have just been flat out stomping people out and putting the ball in Jordan Love's hand. Go the other way with this thing and be really conservative in this game coming up last week. Going back to last week, I thought that I didn't think that Minnesota played that much prevent defense. I just think that they found their niche a little too late in the game and they come up short. They shouldn't wait until they got down 17. And I'm sure if they had that to do over, McFleur say, yeah, I didn't call this game right. I should have just let Love throw to set up the run instead of trying to run and quiet the crowd down and just kind of ease into the game that way. But meanwhile, you had those. That's why I picked Minnesota to win this game. You had those defensive players who were injured. But then again, not to repeat myself, but there was good coverage downfield on a lot of those plays, and Darnold was just flat out making the throws on the other side. So that was an opportunity missed for them. They're still in the playoffs. But they've been getting the bad end of the stick here in the divisional play. They're a very young, up and down team, this Packers team. I still think that they have a pretty high ceiling. Now they got to bust through it and start beating division foes, Detroit and Minnesota, because they're having trouble against both. Okay? But it was a great game, though. That was a playoff atmosphere. I would met some people from Minnesota while I was driving Uber. And I told this couple, I said, man, that is a great looking stadium up there. I love the big windows where you could see out like that. And the dome atmosphere. I mean, that is a really, really sharp stadium up there in Minneapolis. And they say, yeah, it really is. But they were happy to be here in Nashville. They just didn't like our 43-degree temperatures. I said, well, it's just shorts weather. I said, man, you should have came down here and yesterday, which was this past Monday, it was 63. And they said, no, they were still back home. So, but that's a good win. I cannot wait to see that game coming up. We will talk about that tomorrow. Me and the Mad New Yorker, we will go over that game against that Detroit-Minnesota game. Of course, Detroit wins. They go all out against the 49ers. They do not hold back. I like that fact. They're playing with that edge. They're not mailing in anything, and it's going to be a good game. I'll have to break down the injury report and see, and that's going to be up in Detroit, so we'll see how it plays. But I heard something about Detroit the other day, 5 40-point games and no turnovers in these games. Scoring that many points and not turning the ball over is almost slim and none, because that means you're doing a lot of long drives here. That's very elite, efficient offensive play calling and execution, not just play calling, actual execution there between Jared Goff and his wide receiving core, particularly Amon-Ra St. Brown and company. So something to watch for. Okay, this is the most undercovered story in the league. I mean, you've got Kansas City going 15-1. You've got Philadelphia, ninth best rushing season ever by a running back, Saquon Barkley, 2,000-yard mark plus over the weekend. That's a big storyline here. You've got Josh Allen possibly going to win an MVP. You've got Derrick Henry finding life there in Baltimore. But everybody's overlooking Washington. Commanders clinched a wild card Monday. Was it Sunday night? Excuse me. Or was it Monday? I can't. Oh, it was Sunday. Sunday over Atlanta. 11-win season in 16 weeks. More wins than any Dan Snyder ran team, and that's the former owner. And my friend, who I just had on the program last month, I don't have Mike's book up here because I'm reading it. It's in my living room. Mike Richmond, the author that's wrote the book about George Allen, former Commanders coach there. He put this post out here on Facebook, and I shared it. He says, Washington, first 11-win season since 1991, my man says. He says, with the Commanders' dramatic 30-24 overtime win over Atlanta Sunday, the franchise earned a wild card playoff spot and posted his first 11-win season since 91. The Redskins finished 14-2 and plowed through the playoffs here. Let me say this. That was the first Super Bowl I've ever seen and watched all the way through where I knew what was going on. I was now I wasn't quite 10 years old yet. I was 9 years old. Back then, the Super Bowl was played in January. And that's when I really started. Mark Ripken was the, I think his nephew's playing. He's a backup somewhere in the NFL. Mark Ripken was the quarterback on that team, ran by Joe Gibbs. What else did he say? Joe Gibbs, and, of course, Mark Ripken, Art Monk, Gary Clark, Ricky Sanders, and, of course, the great cornerback Darrell Green is what Mike Richmond says. As far as this team is concerned, they've got to play Dallas this weekend. And I tell you what, they need to win this game. They do not want to drop down to this last wild card spot here. Where they are now, they would be able to. They would if it ended today, they would have to play at LA. Okay, and that's fine with them. I like them against LA, but if they lost Sunday to Dallas, if they rested their starters and lost to Dallas Sunday, but they got to play at Dallas Sunday, then they got to play Philadelphia. Now, mind you, yeah, they did beat Philadelphia a few weeks ago, but Jalen Hurts had a concussion in that game. Got a concussion in the first quarter. Philly was already up by 2 touchdowns. And of course, they just willed their way back in by the great play of Jalen Daniels there. But I like their chances against the Rams. Although the Rams have the experience at quarterback, really good head coach there, really good quarterback play there, good playmakers, little weak on the back end. Even though Washington Commanders, young team led by a rookie, they could beat you 1,000 ways from Sunday. You know, the way this team is playing right now. Remember, they pushed Baltimore pretty hard. They beat Philadelphia. The Rams couldn't beat Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is one of the best teams in the NFL, all NFL. Remember, that Eagles team is beating up on a lot of good teams, including Pittsburgh, a playoff team, and, of course, Baltimore, a playoff team. This is a very good team. Also, Washington will got back, and he's getting his legs underneath him, defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. Okay. So, and I mentioned last week that his numbers are better than Stroud. CJ Stroud's numbers were last year, other than the interceptions, and that's because he's pulling the trigger more on big plays. He's playing more loose. He's playing more free, and quite frankly, he's throwing the ball with more confidence than C.J. Stroud. Stroud has got destroyed last week by Baltimore. This guy almost beat Baltimore in his rookie year. This offense is perfect for him. Just a year ago, this team had a new owner, a new general manager. They've got a new coach since last year. They had the number 2 pick overall, and they had the most money in cap space, and they took advantage of all of it. All of it. Was in love with Dan Quinn hire because I saw how Atlanta went downhill the longer he took over them. But I did like the fact that they brought in Kingsbury and matched him up with Jalen Daniels. Daniels has found a way to stay healthy. I know he had a rib injury. He's playing smart. Probably needs to run a little bit less. But comparing him to a Robert Griffin, not even close. Not even close. Much more poised as a passer, a thicker player, a bigger player. Again, like I said, he's better than the guy Stroud last year, who I thought was the next coming here. This team, they need to go all out, beat Dallas. I could see them going on the road, beating a Ram team. I could see them matching up well against a pretty banged up Detroit team. And who's to say that they wouldn't be, the fact that they play them twice a year anyways, play well against the Philadelphia team. We don't know how Hurts is going to look after this concussion. Sometimes players are not as sharp. So we'll see how all this plays out. But they're a team that's just been overlooked. I mean, first 11 win plus team since 1991. Of course, that covers all the Snyder years. I think he bought it in 99. And then they slowly he would make his Super Bowl would be in the offseason when he would go out and get a guy like a Albert Haynesworth. And they would win the Super Bowl in March, they would win the headlines in free agency every year under Dan Snyder. And then that would fall short once the actual game started. He'd go out and get Steve Spurrier, Mike Shanahan, get the big coach, get the big players. And they just could not put none of it all together. But, they got the win on Sunday Night Football. Side note, as far as Raheem Morris, he's still a fairly young coach. Raheem is like 47. Remember, he got a job 14-something years ago. When he's 33 years old with Tampa, he's way, way too young. I don't think he lasted 2 years at that particular job. But it sounds like he had a little too much faith in Michael Penix Sunday night, not calling that timeout, and Penix wasting time. That tells me that Penix must be running the 2-minute drill really sharp in practice. That's what that tells me. Hindsight's 2020. They're probably out of the playoffs at this point. I don't think Tampa's going to cough up another game. If you ask me, and of course I've got it recorded and it cut into a short clip, that I would have yanked out Cousins probably at the bye week when he started going downhill, put him in. When you do that, typically in these situations, this is not a typical situation because Cousins got a 4-year, $100 million deal. That's March news. That was back in free agency, before the April draft where they took Michael Penix with the 8th pick overall. That being said, his play went downhill. I thought maybe at the time, but I'm not in the locker room, maybe he was dealing with the injury, not disclosed, which is illegal. You're supposed to disclose it to the league and put out an injury report. But if they knew that in-house, per se, or if they said he did not have an injury and he was playing that bad, then you take the bye week and install Michael Penix. You want to install Michael Penix early. You want to get the message out and put him in there, and then they don't blow their game. They played a banged up short week for a LA Charger team that could have beat them in Atlanta. Should have beat them. Roberts had a pretty good game, but Cousins has screwed things up here, So it is what it is. He learned. I think he'll manage the clock better. They missed the 56-yard field goal going back to the Washington game, and the rest is history. Things happen just the way they do. That's just the way it is. All right, so that leads me, like I said, I haven't had a program here since last Friday. This leads me to my Power 5, and yes, Minnesota is in the Power 5. They should be 14-2 wild card. This kind of reminds me of a 1999 Titans team. The Titans were a little bit, not much. Titans were 13-3. And they were a wild card team in the AFC Central, I believe, at the time. They wasn't the South and the North. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, the team that won the division, was 14-2, and their two losses were to the Titans. But the Titans did not have the Titans end up, beating them anyways and beat them for a third time. But they were a great team, but they were just a wild card in a really good division. Same thing with Minnesota, 14-2. They're in my Power 5. I wouldn't call him a comeback player, but can you have a breakout player, Sam Darnold, at the age of 27, 28 years old? I say so. I'll say, like I said, I compared, this is very Rich Gannon-like, getting an MVP talk here for him. Brian Flores' defense, second run defense. And you know what? Like I said, they lost Danielle Hunter. He's with the Texans, their best player on defense. They got some age on defense. And Flores may get some job offers. Maybe he takes the Bears job. Maybe he takes the Jaguars job. Maybe he makes a comeback as a head coach. I got a feeling he's not going to be a great head coach. He did have a winning record in Miami, but I think he's just a better coordinator, kind of like Spagnuolo with the Kansas City Chiefs here. But listen, I mean, second run defense, third tied most in sacks. Got to put the Minnesota Vikings fifth. Thought it was a fluke. They got off that real good start. They lost two straight, and they haven't looked back since that two-game losing streak. They've won ever since their two-game losing streak. Now, one of those losses was Detroit. But kudos to them. They're in the Power 5, number 5 for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, number 4, Buffalo, another blowout win. It was the Jets, but hey, it is what it is. They had them down 40-0 at one point. Wrapped up the 2 seed in the AFC East. Best Josh Allen-led team. They just got to be consistent, run the ball. Listen, they're stuck in that 2 seed, folks. They're stuck in that 2 seed. They cannot catch Kansas City. They've got 3 losses. The Ravens can't catch them. They're pretty much locked into that 3 if they win against Cleveland on Saturday, which I think they will demolish Cleveland. They'll probably cover that 20-point spread there. But Buffalo, I'm telling you, I would rest their running backs there and let them, because that's what they need to do, lean on the running backs. You cannot trust this Buffalo defense. But that got probably the best by the way, they got the best point differential in the league, plus 164 in the Bills right now. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, probably the best tight end tandem in the league here. Above average wide receiver core Keon Coleman might be a wild card in the playoffs. Great catch he made Sunday in the that's a rookie Keon Coleman out of Florida State, second round pick there. He was mainly supposedly the replacement there for Stephon Diggs, who they traded to Houston. Turned out to be a bad deal for the Texans because Diggs ended up getting hurt. But I think a guy like a Coleman could be a key contributor in the playoffs. They beat both 1 seeds, by the way, Buffalo. Can you believe that? They're the only team that beat the Chiefs in all of football. And they also, they caught them right, but they beat the Lions. They beat both 1 seeds. So they're, we'll see what happens. They also get blown out by the Ravens. Now they had some defensive injuries. Let's see how this thing plays out there as the season goes along. So we got Buffalo at 4. Now, number 3, Kansas City blew a red-hot Cowboys team without Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett there at the helm there. Now, Jalen Hurts likely will be back for the Eagles. Now, listen, they cannot get the 1 seed with Minnesota's win at Green Bay, but still best defense on all 3 levels, front, middle, and back. 5th in offense, 1st in total defense. Total defense is yards allowed and everything for Philadelphia. Still a really deep, well put together team by Howie Roseman, general manager, and that group there, folks. Saquon Barkley, a lot of talk. Will he play this weekend to try to go for the rushing record? We all know that those other records were set with 16 games. It's 17 games. Now it looks like he's going to rest, and I think it's the right thing to do. You want to rest him before you play any of these teams. They may draw a Green Bay, which is not going to be easy. They may draw Washington if Washington loses to the Cowboys, which the Cowboys played them pretty hard. I want to say, didn't the Cowboys beat them earlier this year? So I think they will beat Dallas this time. But again, we'll see what happens come here in 2 weeks. This is going to be interesting. They're going to end up playing a tough team. They may play a Green Bay or I know they won't play Minnesota because Minnesota is the highest ranked. They're going to be a very high ranked wild card team. They're going to play probably Tampa next week sometime or another. But anywho, still a good team. Still a good team here. I still like what they're going to do. Now, if they lose this next week, not good for Minnesota or not good for the Eagles. But again, I got them at 3. Baltimore. I moved Baltimore. Just totally demolished on Christmas Day. What was it, 25-2, some weird score like that against Houston, another playoff team here. Number 1 run defense in the league here. They lead the AFC North 11-5. Again, they're 18 to 20 point favorites, depending on what book you look at against Cleveland. So they're probably going to go 12-5. Lamar Jackson could still potentially, there's still a chance, given that sideways look like De Niro, there's still a chance that he could win his 3rd MVP, but I'm sure he ain't worried about that. By the way, he's finally got him a Pro Bowl receiver. Congratulations to, who is it, Zay Flowers there, the wide receiver's got his first Pro Bowl bid there, 2nd-year player. They got a Pro Bowl receiver. Lamar Jackson putting up big numbers, him. But I compared it. Josh Allen, 39 touchdowns, 4 picks, 850 yards rushing there. But Jackson, listen, he's got more passing touchdowns, less interceptions, less rushing touchdowns, but he's working on things that he has not been good at, and that's making 3rd down throws there, and got a lot better at it. Baltimore, again, best overall offense in the league, best run defense in the league. and they're up there in sacks and everything. They do give up big plays. They tighten a lot of that up over the last month, 6 weeks or so. So I got them in number 2. I think they're that good right now. And, of course, number 1, Kansas City, getting better, second best total points, 4th in yards, 15-1, already clinched the 1 seed, best record in the NFL, 2-time champs. Maybe a healthy Bills team could play them. Maybe a Detroit team can actually match up well against this team. Hollywood Brown getting his timing back with Patrick Mahomes. Xavier Worthy, listen, he don't have to carry anything. He can kind of hide he can get lost in the mix between a DeAndre Hopkins per se and a Hollywood Brown, 2 veteran quarterbacks there, and moving Joel Tooney to left tackle still hasn't affected their offensive line that I've noticed. So again, Kansas City number 1. By the way, Patrick Mahomes did not make it to the Pro Bowl. Now, you think he cares about that? I'm sure it probably irks him a little bit. Patrick Mahomes, yeah, you heard that right. I want to say it was Jackson and Allen in the AFC. Mahomes not in the Pro Bowl. I remember one year, I want to say that the Patriots didn't have anybody in it, but they were like 14-2, but they were so good as a team. Who cares if you win the Super Bowl? Those individual accolade games. Either way, that he's going to use that as a he's not going to play this week. Carson Wentz is going to play this week. They play Denver in a very important game. If Denver wins, they're in over Kansas City. Now, Carson Wentz is not a chump. And if you all been watching this team in the past few years, Kansas City, by the way, let me give you this so I can cut it later. Kansas City, number 1, Baltimore, number 2, and let's see, number 3, Philadelphia, number 4, Buffalo, number 5, Minnesota. So that's my Power 5 as of this past week. And, of course, next week we'll be talking playoffs, and probably by Monday we'll be talking potential Black Monday. Now, Doug Peterson's still the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars as of right now. Would a guy like a Brian Flores be a coach at Jacksonville? Yeah, he would be a good fit. Would a Mike Vrabel, everybody's talking about Mike Vrabel to the Chicago Bears. Would Vrabel be a good fit there with the Chicago Bears? Yeah, sure, possibly. Him and Josh McDaniels. But also, would Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels be a good fit with Drake May up in New England with $135 million in cap room? And did I mention the fact as of today, they've got the number 1 overall pick? Yeah, that would be good for him. But also, Mike Vrabel, this would be awful for Tennessee. Wouldn't he be pretty good, a fit down in Jacksonville if they got rid of Bulky and brought in another general manager, maybe Joe Douglas or something? I don't like Trip Bulky. I think the concerns about him are legit. But would he be a good fit down in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence? Get that defense intact, which is awful, the Jacksonville defense. Build their culture back up. That would be bad for Tennessee, but hey, it is what it is, Titan fans. It is what it is. And, of course, speaking of that, Tennessee is sitting there at the 2. They have lost. They've had a good week as far as people that are watching, wanting to see their team get higher in the draft. They've been out of the playoffs. No, they didn't have any Pro Bowlers, by the way. Neither did the Dolphins, by the way. That news came out today as well, or it may have been yesterday. I think it was today, actually. Either way, doesn't matter. If you're a Titans fan, you're sitting at that 2 pick, which means you got a shot at Schroeder, Sanders, who's getting a lot of criticism, I think because of his dad and his dad's ego and all that stuff, and fear that Deion, which Deion calls this, I've heard him. Deion said this, that he wants to steer wherever Schroeder goes. He doesn't want him playing in cold environments. A lot of that I feel like is tongue in cheek, but I do think he would step in like an Eli Manning, like an Arch Manning and situation, or John Elway back in '83, and not want to go to the Colts, or Eli not wanting to go to the then San Diego Chargers. They didn't like the ownership. Arch didn't like it. I think he would be lenient, and of course, I do think the organization would have to talk to a Sanders about it. But my point is that he's got a lot of experience. Sanders does. Schroeder is. Listen, look at the players like Jaden Daniels. Look at the players like Bo Nix, Michael Penix. These guys transferred. They've played 3 and 4 years. And Bo Nix, I think he's played 5 or 6. I think he's got the most starts in college football history. All right. This guy played as a freshman at Jackson State, and as a sophomore now in the first 2 years with Colorado. And I want to say he's got one of the highest completion percentages in the history of college football on Schroeder Sanders. So I would give Schroeder Sanders a look if I'm a Tennessee. I would talk to Deion and see where he stands on all this and check in with their camp. But he's got a lot of experience, and a lot of experience is a good thing. This 2 full years of starting, sometimes that simply does not work out in the NFL. Or one really good year where you have a Zach, what's the guy's name? Zach, or I want to call him Zach Ertz here. The player but used to play with Dallas or with the Jets. You want to have a situation like him, or Mitch Trubisky, or you want to have a situation where the guy's played a ton of snaps, where you do have a Bo Nix who's played a lot of snaps, and he's got the right coach around him. I think he's with the Broncos. Let me look at the Broncos depth chart here. But a lot of people that were drafted, in the 2021 draft has not felt. Zach Wilson, excuse me, with the Jets, one great year. And he was making throws that Sam Darnold was making. So it's just – and now the Jets are with Aaron Rodgers, who is hinting around now that he don't want to play no more. So maybe they'll be in the quarterback market. I guess my point going back to Sanders is Cam Ward's got a lot of experience as well. He played with Washington a few years. Now he's played a good year with the Hurricanes. So I do like that. I like the experience. Because you've got more tape on them. You know what they're good at. You know what they're not good at. It's not a flash in the pan per se. And Jalen Monroe's another guy from Alabama. He's declared it at. And I think he's a little bit more raw than a Cam Ward and Schroeder Sanders. And of course, that's why a lot of the mock drafts are seeing it right now. But you let a guy like that sit for a year or two, like a Jordan Love, and then you may have something special there with a Jalen Monroe, which would be ideal for a team like the Jets if you could talk an Aaron Rodgers into coming back, get the right kind of system around Aaron Rodgers, and let Monroe learn from him from 2 years, and then Rodgers. That would be an ideal situation, though, for the Jet fans. I got a feeling Rodgers is going to retire, and the Jets are going to be stuck picking in the middle, 8th, 7th, 8th in the draft, and kind of be out of luck and maybe not get a quarterback in the first round, or one that's able to draft that high. So typical Jets, but you never know. You never know, folks. If you like the show, share the show. I'll be back here with the Mad New Yorker. We'll go over this week's past games And, of course, we'll look ahead to this weekend. Got some big games this weekend, particularly in the NFL. And, of course, the way this thing is set up, we'll have to make next week's prediction for the college football playoff. We'll have to give that Final Four because it's going to be next Thursday and Friday, which I think is so weird. I don't know why they just don't put it on Saturday. But anyways, I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on the Real Sports Scope.